Welcome to the Professional Muslim Women Podcast, a place for working Muslim women to share their stories, struggles, triumphs, and lessons learned along the way in pursuit of their careers. I'm Dr. Kali Husain.
And I'm Dr. Hani Ahmed. And in this podcast, we bring inspirational, trailblazing, successful, and fulfilled professional Muslim women to you.
Get ready to be inspired and learn how you can forge your own path as well.
Hello, assalamu alaikum everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. This is your host, Dr. Hani Ahmed, and today my guest is Dr. Marium Husain. Dr. Husain is a current hematology-oncology fellow at the Ohio State University James Comprehensive Care Center. She graduated from the Ohio State University College of Medicine and completed a residency in internal medicine. Marium has also been working on community service projects in the Columbus area and abroad for the past 10 years. As the treasurer of the national nonprofit IMANA, which stands for Islamic Medical Association of North America, she has been working on public health education and creating domestic campaigns for food insecurity, reproductive health, mental health, and climate change. She also has traveled to Haiti as part of IMANA Medical Relief to help provide primary care at a rural clinic and raise money to build wells for clean water access. IMANA is a leading resource and network for American Muslim physicians, dentists, and other healthcare professionals in North America. And if she wasn't busy being a fellow, she's also a volunteer. Dr. Husain has volunteered with the WHO working on nutrition-related projects and with Médecins Sans Frontières or Doctors Without Borders. She serves on the NAMI Franklin County Board and has collaborated with the Ohio State University on mental health-focused programs for students. In addition, she organizes and participates in town halls in the Dayton, Ohio area to raise awareness of racism and Islamophobia. For this work, she receives the Civil Rights Award by the Dayton Human Relations Council. She also volunteers with the Women of APNA, which stands for Association of Physicians of Pakistani Descent of North America, to help raise awareness of basic women's health rights and professional development. Marium has a strong passion for social justice projects, including climate change, human trafficking, and food security. Faith is a driving force in her life, and she has seen the profound impact of integrating science and faith in her own life. MashaAllah, what an accomplishment. Please help me welcome Dr. Marium Husain to the podcast. Hi, Marium. Assalamu alaikum.
Hi. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you, Jazakallah for going through all that. I'm very honored to be on this podcast.
Oh, thank you. I'm so happy to have you here. Yes, you have definitely accomplished a lot, mashallah. I have to ask you as a fellow, where do you get the time?
It's a very good question.
Where I'm going to start, mashallah. But congratulations on all of your achievement. So Marium, I have a lot of questions I want to ask you, especially in some of the projects that you're involved with. I think that this would be an interesting subject to get into for our audience who are other Muslim women who are always looking for opportunities to get involved and help out their fellow sisters. But first, let's get a little bit into your life. Go back a little bit and tell us about how you got to medicine and what led you into the field of hematology-oncology. And go ahead and define it if you can.
So hematology-oncology, it's basically the study of blood disorders, blood cancers, and solid tumor cancers. So I came to medicine kind of in a roundabout way, but I actually did not want to be a doctor when I was growing up. So I'm South Asian descent or heritage, and so Pakistani Indian. The joke is that we all become doctors, right? And if you're not a doctor, then you're an engineer or something. And if you're not, then, good luck, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to rebel against that just because I really liked astronomy. And so I thought, I don't know if I necessarily wanted to do to become an astronaut, but I just wanted to look up at the stars for forever. And that was it. But then I found out that there was a lot of physics involved and I was not prepared for that. So it was a little bit of a trouble as to what I was going to do. But alhamdulillah, my mom's fine now. But there was an incident where she was fasting for a colonoscopy and she's very sensitive to, not eating or drinking. And so she actually had passed out when she was preparing for her colonoscopy prep or while she was doing the prep. And I remember I was home alone with her and I had no idea what to do. And I was in high school. And so I was, relatively old enough, right? And, with it. And so I just remember there was panic and, calling 911. And like I said, alhamdulillah, she was totally fine. She just passed out, just from being dehydrated. But it was in that moment that I thought that, I could always look up at the sky, right, at the night sky, but I would never want someone else to be in that same position that I was in, that I just didn't know what to do, right? And so that kind of steered me towards medicine then. So I gave in to the stereotype. And so when I went to undergrad at University of Dayton, I learned about Doctors Without Borders. A lot of times people will say things that, you just get a feeling, right?
Yeah.
You'll just know what you want to do. You'll just feel it. And I always thought that was crazy, that how could that happen? And mashallah, like when I was learning about them, something clicked, like something in my heart just like turned on. And it's like, oh, this is what I need to do for the rest of my life. Like, this is what I'm meant to do. And so the whole journey from that time was to eventually do global health stuff. And then just in a series of different family issues and things like that we do not have time for, but that a bunch of stuff that had happened. And honestly, a lot of stuff from residency too, that, burnout, moral injury, all of that kind of built up. And so I took a break, did the hospitalist work, and then subhanAllah, dealing with cancer patients, it made me realize that, I actually do really like cancer medicine, I should say, and taking care of those patients. And so alhamdulillah, my path turned me toward that, and it worked out where I was able to start fellowship this year.
MashaAllah, that's great. I'm totally with you. I hear you. A lot of us come to medicine for that reason, right? We have this experience and we think it's great to help people. This is such a clear and obvious way to help people. And then Doctors Without Borders is like almost the epitome of that, It's almost like they're superheroes, amongst physicians. I did a little bit of global health. I had some exposure there where I got to travel abroad, and it was such a fulfilling time in my life. And I just think that if it wasn't so disruptive or conducive to like family life,
Yes, so true. Yeah.
And trying to raise kids, it would be something that I would kind of look into it. Tell me about that experience. What was that like?
In terms for Doctors Without Borders specifically?
Or your work abroad, or your work with the WHO, or anything like international medicine related.
My poor mom kept hearing me talk about wanting to go abroad and go to war zones and all of that. And there was actually, mashallah, the way that it worked out, that my mom's a teacher, like a pre-kindergarten enrichment teacher. And so some of the parents of her kids went to a local church. And, mashallah, it's ultimately, right, faith and religion just comes down to, are you a good person or not, right? Like, are you following the teachings? And so these people at the church were these amazing, trustworthy, good people that they would go abroad to Jamaica, actually, and provide medical care there. And so, like, mashallah, my mom agreed to let me go with them as kind of my first foray into actually like a medical mission trip. And when you think of Jamaica, you don't think of, you think of resorts, right, and people going for vacation. And when I went there, the stereotypical perception that people have of lower income countries, which is, literally on different sides of the street, you could have a rich person and a poor person. That was unbelievably so real there in Jamaica, where literally you're going down the major highway of the entire island, and there were shacks on one side of the road and then 5-star resorts on the other side. And it was just the most depressing thing, the most eye-opening thing that, subhanAllah, we live in America, and, for the most part, most, people live a comfortable life. And, it was probably like a 2-3 hour plane ride, and, just abject poverty.
Yeah.
And so that definitely, confirmed that I'm like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. And we're definitely going to do abroad work. And then alhamdulillah, I found out about Imana. So Islamic Medical Association of North America. And so they do medical relief. And so I'm like, this is perfect. It's a Muslim group. My mom's going to be okay with me going with other Muslims. And so with them, I went to Haiti when I was an intern. And I actually went 3 times. And that was the thing. I love how you said that too, that it's such a rewarding experience, and it unbelievably is. But the second and third time I went, it was also a very eye-opening experience too, because you realize that you probably benefit more than potentially the care you give people there, right? Because as much as Imana tries to, we go there multiple times, we connect with local physicians, provide care, all of that. But just looking at global health in general, and I try to talk to other students about this too, that it's like just make sure you go with a group that focuses on sustainability, right? And not just helicoptering in and feeling good about yourself and then leaving, right? To go back to your comfortable life.
Yeah.
And so that was a real hard thing to try to reconcile, to be honest.
Yeah, there's definitely been reckoning with this sort of like it's a vacation, but it's also a medical mission or somewhere people spend a lot of money to travel, in the thousands of dollars somewhere really, really far away. And they're there for just a week, and it's like,
right.
yeah. And economically, does it not make more sense to send that money, or that money that you used on your plane ticket? Now, these are medical mission people who are not even trained, who don't really have a skill, and they go there, but it's on a spectrum and there's definitely a reckoning with that. I love how you mentioned sustainability. That's something that I've been reading about a lot too now. And it really speaks to how medical missions need to change. But that is a topic for another conversation, inshallah.
Sure. No.
That sounds wonderful. I haven't heard about Imana yet. I'm really glad that I did, because I did see that it is an organization with a lot of Muslim people in the healthcare sector, not just physicians, but a lot of physicians, and are engaged in physician education and all the other things that organizations are, but it's Muslim. So I'm really, really excited to join up and learn more, get more into that, mashallah.
Wonderful. Yes.
And you do trips abroad, right? It includes CME, right? To get some more learning experience in CME.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So Imana has been around now for almost 53 years. So mashallah, it's longstanding. It's definitely a sustainable organization too throughout the years. And so we started focusing a lot on medical relief the last 12 years or so. Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things where, if you have a particular skill set in a particular niche, how can you optimize what you can do for society and for your field and your career, right? With the resources and gifts that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given all us, right? To not just do the bare minimum, but how can you really do the best that you can, type of thing. And so I feel like Imana Mashallah has really done a good job of doing that, and it continues to do that, right? Like, how can we improve every year? And so, so medical relief is the biggest thing. And so, like I was saying, the biggest thing that we try to focus on is sustainability, right? Some places just need acute humanitarian relief for that time, and then the country is able to take over again. But in those countries, like, for example, Haiti, Syria, like, we'll go to Jordan and have refugee camps there. We actually go to Bangladesh also and provide care for Rohingya refugees. We started a trip just recently to Yemen, actually, as well, too. So the focus is offering services to people locally and internationally. So CME as well, too, right? So physician education. We actually got accredited by the association, like the Accreditation Association for CME. And so that was a labor of love by one of our founding members. And so we offer that as well, too. We have a really, mashallah, very active education committee, which I would hope that, maybe some listeners would be interested in, is that where we talk about anything public health, medical related, and try to have it in an Islamic context. So reproductive health, women's health, mental health, and then obviously the other chronic diseases, things like that. And we also have a student resident committee. So not just looking at established physicians, but how can we mentor and help students and residents learn about the process, how to streamline all the difficulties in the game that it is. So
wow.
So subhanAllah, we've been able to do a good amount, but alhamdulillah.
Mashallah, that is wonderful. Sounds like a really good resource for any young student who may be thinking about medical school or maybe thinking about entering into healthcare, pursuing their career there, and would like to get that information from Muslim physicians and those professionals in healthcare. That's amazing. That's wonderful. I'm shocked I haven't heard of it before, but I'm so glad I found out.
Hey, no, it's always a time for everything. So it's good.
That is true. Alhamdulillah. So, Marium, you also have an interest in science and Islam and medical science. And there is, I want to say, a lack of understanding, even amongst our community, with the contributions of historical Islamic figures or Islam in general to modern science. Even now, there's this talk that religion is the opposite of or antithetical to scientific principles. You have an interest in this area and re-educating Muslims about the impact of Muslims you had on science. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I think so. It was actually, everything comes back to Amana, mashallah, in my life. So through Amana, I had connected with one of the physicians who helped start it and grow it, Dr. Husain Nagamia. And so he has dedicated a good portion of his life to kind of finding these historical artifacts and kind of resurrecting this awareness about the role Islam played in contributing to science and medicine in general. And so we used to offer an essay contest to medical students that if they could talk about, let's say, for example, one year it's about surgical instruments and relating it back to Muslim surgeons, early Muslim surgeons. And so they actually went off to become an independent organization. And so now they're called NIMS, so Nagamia Institute of Islamic Medicine and Science. And so that's just the main focus of it. And it also, I think, just as you learn about science in medical school and then you actually learn how to apply it in residency, right? That you're just so focused on, oh my God, I just need to know things and I just need to make sure this patient survives, right? The next day, and that you almost can't really even think anything beyond your like a consciousness because you're just so in the day to day, right? But then once you're done, right, and you have like, inshallah, you have like a natural flow, right, to your skill set, your knowledge base, and then just talking to patients, you can actually think beyond different things. And I was realizing that a lot of conversations I was having with patients about, death and dying or new diagnosis of cancer, that religion and science would sometimes be at odds. That some people would just only go for the science and would not use faith to get them through anything and then rely on, chemo or just labs or whatever. And then you have other people who were like, it's just God, or, obviously living in America, larger Christian population. So it's either Jesus or whatever. And I don't need chemo, or I'm not going to follow it this way. I'm just going to take nothing or herbs or prayer or whatever. Right. So it's just like these diametrically opposed options. And then when you read the Quran and you read about, during the Prophet's peace be upon him time and everything that early Muslims did, right, to contribute to everything that we have now, it's one of those things where you realize that we, as a ummah, right, like we, mashallah, come from amazing, great people who used religion and faith in God and intelligence, right, that the Quran, it promotes, and science. And it created this synergy where leaps and bounds, we figured things out about science, about medicine, all of it, right? Astronomy, irrigation, government, even, like, it's just amazing how much wealth of knowledge that we were able to produce because of faith and because of a love of learning. And it's one of those things where it's like, not to get political, but, after the fall of the Ottoman Empire, right? Like after World War I, and we just kind of had this, in my opinion, this devolution, that strength of the Muslim community, right? And then you fast forward to terrorism, right? That's all that Muslims are known for now, which is terrible. But then you realize that we're not still, right? Like there are people like you, there are people like Ali, there are people like Imana, right? And organizations like Imana and NIMS that are doing things. And our voices just aren't as loud as the opposing ones, right?
Yeah.
And so that was the motivation, that it's like, well, I'm a scientist, but I'm also a Muslim. And that's okay. And that makes sense. And I feel like my religion promotes that. And I want people to know that. And so that's the motivation behind doing that work.
Yeah, that's so well said. I absolutely agree 100%. One of the things that my father, when I was, growing up, used to tell us is he would tell us to, look for evidence, because this is what God tells us in the Quran. Like, look at all of the ayahs or signs of, and he reminds me, my dad, and he used to throughout medical school, whenever I tell him like, oh my gosh, dad, there was a cadaver and I operated on a cadaver, and he would say, remember, look for the signs, look for the signs. You have a special opportunity to appreciate, he used to say, Islam, because you are learning. And so you're a learned person and you can look for the signs, you can look for the ayahs. So that is incredible. It's unfortunate, you're right, that story isn't told. It's being drowned out by these other stories that the sources is negative, anti-Muslim a lot. And we need to be able to, I think, not just educate the non-Muslim people, but ourselves, even our youth, our communities about the golden era, if you will, of Islam, but also all of the people who are currently scientists and who are proving every day that there is no conflict between religion and science. And I definitely stand for that. So, Mariam, I don't mean to act like a professor. I might put you on the spot a little bit here, but can you tell us a story or about a person or individual or a story about a scientist or a scientific breakthrough that came from Islam that we don't, we take for granted or may not be aware of?
Yeah, there are several, and I'm trying to think of one that would be probably more relevant. Okay, so for example, Dr. Nagami, right? So the guy actually did start all of the NIMS that a lot of more well-known early Muslim physicians that had, have westernized names. So like Avicenna, right? So Ibn Sina, or Razi or Razzies, right? And so those guys, it's just so funny, that now we're also specialized in medicine. But those guys, and I would think women, we just don't know a lot of their stories, were, jacks of all trades, right? Like they did anything and everything, all science, all medicine. And so they obviously used to do a lot of surgery. And so in addition to like coming up with different chemicals and medicines, and so they came up with a lot of instruments, a lot of surgical instruments that people have refined and use to this day. And so, like, for example, alchemy. So just this concept of mixing two different chemicals together and then creating different compounds. So then kind of like the precursor to pharmacy. That was started by, and I apologize if this is wrong, but I want to say it was Ibn Haytham, but I will double check that for you to make sure. But he was an early Muslim physician as well, too. Kind of like, I think, 700s to 800s. So, they had that. And then speaking about women, just because unfortunately they're, at least the documents that are out there right now don't really highlight all that the women had done. And I think just at that time, I just don't know how well it was recorded either. But there's a prominent woman, Fatima al-Fihri, who, I'm forgetting the year, but she's credited with actually starting the very first university, right? Like in the world. And so, I mean, I know the Greeks and everything that they came beforehand, had these centers of learning and things like that. But the modern concept of a university started from a Muslim woman. Like her dad, she came from wealth. And so they invested into a university, but they also had an adjoining hospital with it too, and a masjid, right? A madrasa too. And so, I mean, there's just so many different examples of what physicians had contributed to, specifically in medicine, but then obviously in general with science like astronomy and elsewhere too.
Yeah.
I hope that answers your question.
Oh, totally. Of course. That's wonderful. As you were speaking, I was just thinking, I would love for my kids to learn about this. It's hidden away, this knowledge. And it's just like you learn about it and it's amazing, mashallah, it really is what the early Muslims did. I can't wait to share it with my kids eventually. But is there a website for Nagamia, the NIMS?
Yeah. Yes, thank you for asking. So it's www.niims.org.
Okay.
And so there'll actually be a bunch of resources there too. And there is a space that we've actually reserved and bought for like a museum space in Chicago.
Oh, wow.
So if anybody's in town there, then there's a bunch of, like I said, artifacts that he has too, and resources as well.
Wow.
And Imana's headquarters are in Chicago too. So everything's in Chicago for us.
So cool. I'll have to definitely check it out. Tell me, what does the future hold? You're a fellow now. You're training in hematology and oncology. You also do some global health. what your career will look like, and what would you advise young women who are thinking about following in your path?
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, inshallah, it's a good path, whatever it is and that the future holds. One thing I've learned is that you can have all the plans right and all the steps that you think you're going to take. But, as the Quran says, Allah is the best of planners. So it really is, I think I've come to this like Zen, place, I think, in my life where God, I feel like has a plan and a path for you. And I think it's just a matter of making sure that you strive and pray for that you are following the path that he's lined up for you so that you can be most happy, most successful in that, right? And make it smooth for you. So I feel like with everything that I've been through that, some things I resisted, some things I went for. And so I think obviously staying on like specializing in a specific type of cancer. And so I'm thinking potentially sarcoma at this point, but which is like a connective tissue, cancers of the connective tissue, like muscle, bone. And so focusing on that, but then also relating back, like you said, we were talking about what's early Muslims and science and all that focusing on integrative medicine too. And that kind of ties back into a lot of prophetic medicine and, what the Prophet ﷺ used to promote with a lot of the hidden gems that are in the Quran too about health, like trying to delve more into that and make that more mainstream potentially. So focusing on that too. And I think honestly, ultimately, I'd really want to make sure, continuing this work, like continuing working with Imana and obviously not having every student or kid become a doctor, but the ones who do, making it as easy for them as possible by contributing to Imana. But then ultimately, too, what I would love to do is also really helping families and youth as well understand that it's not about being a specific career, but it's about finding what is your thing, right? Like, what are your talents? What are your skills? And having the ability to be able to pursue those, right? And really refine those and make it like the best way possible. Because no matter how much you're working, you will love the work that you do if it's what you love to do, right? And especially, it always is good if you're good at it. I would love for us to implement kind of what we used to be, right? In the golden age, like you had said, that where we have writers, we have artists, singers, comedians, doctors, scientists, and just all of it, right? Helping like youth and their families, especially too, to help realize what are these kids and these young adults too, and even people who are mid-level careers, into their careers too, that what are your inherent talents, right? And what are your skills? Because you're going to love doing your job. You're going to love your life and your job if you're doing the things that you love. And I think going back to, how we used to be, right, in early Islam and the golden age of Islam, like you were saying, that where we have people who are the breadth or the spectrum of careers, right, where we were like the best at writing and literature and poetry, science, medicine, astronomy, all of that, like being able to help regain who I think God is asking us to be, right? The best of ourselves and the best representatives of Him. And it's not just medicine. It's not just one other thing that your family used to do. It's whatever you're good at and whatever you love. And I hope that we can get to a point where we can help actualize that for people.
MashaAllah. Well said. I love that. And you're so right. I think that's how, you end up having people like yourself who are, a doctor, but you're also doing A, B, C, and you're doing lots of different work because you're following your passion and what you enjoy. And I see that more and more where people have their hands in multiple areas. And who says you have to do any one thing? And who says you have to have an exact typical career? Thinking outside the box and doing that by following your dream is the way to go, and also leads to a more fulfilling life, right?
Yeah, I agree. I think what you guys are doing with this podcast, I think is absolutely wonderful. And it's so needed. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you so much, Mariam. It was such a pleasure having you and talking with you about these really important and really interesting subjects. Please come back anytime. Anytime you'd like to discuss anything you want. We just loved having you. Thank you.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. Like, I am just so honored and just tickled the fact that I could be on something like this. So thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it.
Take care. Assalamu alaikum.
All right, welcome.
Thank you for tuning into the Professional Muslim Women Podcast, the place for Muslim women to inspire and be inspired.
Please join us on our Facebook group, Professional Muslim Women, to continue the conversation and connect with Muslim women like you. And don't forget to subscribe to the podcast and drop us a like or a review.
We look forward to hearing from you soon.